All right, and share my screen. All right, welcome to the Western Region meeting. All right, I want to talk about the provider hunt team. When you need a provider, there were some updates to the process, and I know some of you got emails from Lena, so I just wanted to clarify how these service lines should be handled. For K-12 assigned lines, you're really going to need two separate lines. You're going to need one for K-12 and one for the student service line. The K-12 line, the start date should be the day that you create that line and send an email to K-12 as provider. That way, that kind of documents when you sent the referral and started requesting a provider. And then the end date will be the day that the team finds you a provider. So whether Lena just adds an RPI card to your board or if she emails you, that should be the day that you end that line. The frequency on the line should match the IEP so that Lena knows, what capacity you need that service to be filled. But the THO doesn't really matter, so you don't have to spend a lot of time calculating THO on it. But do make sure that the frequency is correct so she knows, is it 30 minutes a month or 30 minutes a week? So she can have that conversation with the providers as she's looking. If the provider that the team finds doesn't work out, you can reopen that same line. And that kind of, they use those timelines. The K-12 recruiting team has their own timeline, just like your school has a timeline for how long it took for a service to get started. They have their own timeline to measure how long it takes them to find a provider that works out. So if you have a provider, if they find you a provider and the provider says, Jenny, we just talked about this yesterday, they didn't want to get workman's comp. So then you would just reopen the same line because that provider never worked out. If you have a provider that you contract and they get started, but then they decide they don't want to work with the student any longer and you need another line, I would create a brand new K-12 line for that search, just so that we know the difference between, did they find a provider that didn't work out, or did they find a provider that worked out, but now you need a new one? I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. The second line that you need to create is going to be the student service line that is eventually going to be assigned to the provider that is found. So the start and end dates should match the IEP or the amendment date if it's an amended service. The frequency and THO should match. So when you are calculating THO for this one, you should put the entire amount of time owed. And then once their regular service gets started, you can worry about, compensatory time and creating an AC line for that provider. And when you create that service line, assign it to no provider. And then once it is assigned to the provider that K-12 finds, that provider assigned date is going to show, the reasons for why isn't it scheduled, why isn't there a therapist assigned, or why wasn't this provided for 2 months or whatever. So doing it this way is going to more accurately reflect how many students at your school have no provider assigned. Right now, as long as it's assigned to K-12 and there's no other service line, it looks like all of your students are assigned. That may not be the case. It's also going to help keep it on your radar. And then the start and end dates on the K-12 line, like I said, they have their own timeline. And so they're really working towards improving how long it takes to find providers. So that's the way we're going to do it from now on. Do you guys have any questions about that? Okay. The RPI cards. So when these go on your Trello board, make sure to comment at least weekly on the progress that you have made with each provider. That way we know where you are in the process of contracting. If you are needing help with a provider, if they're not responding or you need more documents, tag us or tag Lena or tag whoever found the provider for you to see if they can help with that connection. Most local providers are very busy, so you're going to be the one that has to do the follow-up. They're not going to, don't expect them to follow up with you, because really it's the school that needs the provider, not the provider that needs the school. So just be the squeaky wheel and stay on them until you can get them contracted so we can get the kiddo in services. Recommended timeline, reach out and give them one business day to respond. I would use email if that's the way you're going to communicate most often. If you are comfortable with establishing the relationship with a phone call, you can do that. But I know there's been issues where some providers do not communicate well with email. And then if you kind of set the precedent that you're going to pick up the phone when you really need an answer from them, just be aware that that may be the way you need to communicate moving forward. I tend to follow up like 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If I'm not hearing back, I'm being that squeaky wheel. If you don't get any response with that third attempt, still contact Lena and just see if she can connect with the provider. There does seem to be some issues at times where Lena tries to hand off the provider and the provider, for whatever reason, just stops responding. So it does happen, and then she's usually able to kind of reconnect, and they've been talking to her and they're comfortable with her. So for whatever reason, I don't know. All right, any questions about the RPI cards? Okay. Monthly tasks. So a few of you have had monthly tasks kind of fall behind, and just wanted to remind you to try to keep up with them monthly. If you aren't keeping up with them monthly, they tend to become really big projects instead of a monthly task. So just a reminder that training is available on the Trello cards. We have recorded trainings that walk through the tasks. We have PowerPoints if you just need to reference something or have like a little question. And there's also the step-by-step instructions written out. If you still need more help understanding how to work on those tasks, reach out. We're willing to walk through them with you one-on-one if that's what you need. And for me, tasks that tend to go, the tough ones that I tend to procrastinate, I put them on my Outlook calendar, and sometimes I'll have to snooze it for an hour, but I'm kind of, when the reminder comes up from my calendar, I start mentally preparing, oh yeah, I've got to do that. And, sometimes I have to snooze it for a day because I'm just like, there's no way I can get to this today. But do whatever works for you. I'm a big fan of Google Calendar, but I don't really use that while I'm working. So I use Outlook for work tasks. And then, of course, you can always use your Trello boards and set the due dates on those. And as long as you're really looking at those every day, that should be fine. So do whatever works for you. But for these tasks, you're probably going to have to block out time to work on them. Some upcoming changes with invoicing, and I know you guys are all kind of anxious about this and waiting for more information. Right now, this is what I can tell you. All the providers are going to need a code, a unique code for your school. And so when you look at the provider details page, whenever you're setting up a new provider, you're going to need to enter in an AVID code, have that highlighted there in that first picture. And it's 2 to 3 letters. Avoid numbers, just 2 to 3 letters. So Presence Learning is PL, Global is like GLO. You don't have to worry about it matching other schools. At least that's what we're being told right now. So each school has a unique code for their provider. So just create something that's 2 or 3 letters for that provider. That'll populate on the AVID invoice. AVID is the program that finance is using, and they're just able to scan in a PDF with all the information needed for invoicing, and that is going to help the turnaround for payment. Yes, Simone, go ahead.
It's the first time I ever used that. So I just signed on with eTherapy, who's a super provider. And then that did pop up, but instead of me creating the code, I was given one. So when it's a provider that's not new to K-12, but new to us, should we use the code that's already created, or should we still create one?
That's interesting. They must have just worked on that in the last couple of days, because last we were talking, they said you would need to create one, but they must have found a way to do that. Cool. No, so if there's one that automatically populates, that's perfect. Just leave it that way.
Okay. It didn't populate. It gave me an error, and it just wouldn't let me save all the change, like save that page, because there was no AVID code, and I didn't know what that was.
Oh yeah, it won't let you. So they have to have one.
Okay. So from now on, we can just create our own.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the national providers don't have one that's like standard. As far as I know, they're just going to be unique to your school.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
and then one of the big changes that I wanted to warn you guys about, and this will probably take place before the end of the year, so just be prepared. All schools are going to need to compile invoices into master invoices. And then there's a little screenshot here of what the master invoice page looks like. And right here is where there will be a PDF link, and you should be able to click there and the PDF will populate. And then that's what will go to finance so that they can pay invoices. I know not all of you work with master invoices, so if you need training on that, definitely we'll be holding some trainings for it. We can meet one-on-one if you want. And I know we have a Trello card that has trainings that we'll just share to all the schools, since everyone will be using that now. So, all right, any questions about anything we talked about today? All right, you guys, well, thanks for being here, and I'll send out the recording shortly, and we'll talk soon.